I'm Alise Mills for Hot Topic on Novus TV, and today we're in the lovely but very, very rainy riding of Vancouver-Burrard, and you may be wondering why we're here. Well, in case you haven't heard, we're in another election. Yes, people, it's a by-election. So we're going to be speaking to the two candidates from the riding today. Hi, Arthur.
Hi, Alise. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
So, I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about your run for office. And as our viewers may or may not know, Arthur has been heavily involved in the community for a very long time now. What made you decide to make the jump from the private sector to getting into government and running for Vancouver-Burrard?
A number of reasons. The reality is that I think every once in a while in your life you come to a bit of a crossroads and you start to assess exactly what you've done in your life and more importantly what you want to do in the rest of your life. And so for me, you know, one of the things my parents always taught me was that essentially you honor your community and giving back. Probably more now than ever, there's a need for people in government and good people in government to walk the talk. And so giving back is essentially a big part of my campaign, so that when I come down to the end of the day, if I'm judged because this community is better off, because I brought people together to help solve issues and more importantly to address the needs of the people on the ground, then I feel like I've done a good job. And that's sort of, it's pretty basic. It's really recognizing having an ability to bring people together and more importantly, help them solve issues that are important to them.
Arthur's been heavily involved in the growth of Vancouver, and I'm curious to know how you see your experience in growing Vancouver and taking that into your new role, possibly your new role as an MLA for Vancouver-Burrard.
Well, actually, that's a great question. But frankly, what it is that I've demonstrated all of my life, and whether it be in philanthropy and community service or in business, that no matter what direction I've gone, I've been able to work with everybody. No matter what your political background, what your socioeconomic background is, or frankly, whatever your walk of life is, I've been able to advocate for people, stand up for people, more importantly, hopefully leave a better footprint. So when I look at where I am, where I want to go, it comes down to in business and in public service, the chance to be able to work with people, make sure that their voice is heard. That is really what all public service is all about, making sure that those people who you represent as elected, that your voice is heard through your political leaders, not just in Victoria. Potentially it's in Ottawa, and potentially it's with the civic leaders, or even at the end of the day, because it really only works if you can work with all people, and I'm talking about all decision makers. Take that opportunity and that experience that I've got, make sure that those people who need to be heard are heard and frankly stood up for.
And so what people may or may not know about you is that you're actually quite scrappy, that you've had some really good fights in Vancouver, and one of them was bringing GM Place into Vancouver and giving the Canucks a venue where all families could participate and be part of the hockey experience in Vancouver. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
It's really interesting. When I was embarking upon building GM Place, what I was looking for was a location that would be essentially these buildings are typically funded by the public sector, so from governments. Typically major structures like this are funded that way. So what we were trying to do was do so with private money. There was absolutely not a single dollar of public money in really essentially a public facility. In addition to that, what was really, really exciting for me is I sat down with the residents of the downtown east side community, and Jim Green is a great example of that, the grandfather of them all. And I said to Jim, what are we going to do? How are we going to make a difference to people who are less fortunate? And what we did in the early 90s when we were building GM Place, we created an employment program. It's called Blade Runners. It still exists to this day. And what that program was is we took people from the downtown east side off the street, brought them in, trained them with the forces at the construction and in fact operations of GM Place, gave them a job, and to this day that program's still alive, it's well, and it's operating on other major construction projects. So walk the talk is really what it is about. For me, it was really a no-brainer. I knew we were going to have jobs. I knew we had an opportunity to make a difference in people's lives who were living on the street, frankly considered to be at that point more or less unemployable. And I can't help but feel great about that, because I see those people to this day, these young men and women, living in the riding, still working, and living in Vancouver-Burrard. It's a great feeling. So it's really important to give back.
Well, I think also where we're standing right now, which is at the Roundhouse Community Centre, is a great example of the projects that came about from having GM Place in the area. Yaletown basically exploded once GM Place was built, and developers followed suit. So maybe you could also talk a little bit about the experience of the uniqueness of Yaletown, which is obviously in your riding.
Yaletown is a very special place. It's a very
is.
special place, not just in the Vancouver scene, but really in the world scene. You don't have to go very far to recognize the good development, civic-minded parks, landscaping, city planners, businesses, and so on have all come together and created a very, very special place. And so my role really was it became part of this entertainment district with respect to GM Place. So we have essentially the sports facilities, of course, GM Place, BC Place, and so on, and the jobs that go on there. And those people spill out, and sometimes they live. And so we've created this really unique community where people literally can live and work and walk.
Maybe you could also talk a little bit about the social issues that affect your riding and some of the work that you've been involved in there.
Absolutely. That's a great question. I mean, what it is today, I mean, the most things I've heard from people on the street are two key issues for the last 6 months. The first issue, and it's no particular order, but would be homelessness and mental health and drug addiction, which is essentially one issue. They're all intertwined to the extent that the important thing for us all to know, I don't care whether it's provincial government, federal government, municipal governments, or private sector, we all have to work together. It will not get solved. I just came from listening to President Clinton, who espouses this all the time. This is all about recognizing that you cannot point the finger and say one group or one level of government is responsible or not responsible for solving a problem. The only way it's going to work is that. So I'm particularly proud that the government of BC has the vision, the desire, and more importantly, the focus to help solve this problem. But we're also bringing in the private sector. They're bringing in the federal government, and they're working with the city. They're building SROs so that people who frankly need special needs, they may just need a boost in their life for some reason to get off some drug addiction, that there's an initiative that's going on. It's clearly something that nobody, I don't care what you want to say about anybody in public life, it is something that nobody will tolerate. The other issue that exists predominantly in what I would call the western half of the riding, it's what's in May will be described as the West End, is renters issues. There are landlords, frankly, who I find are being abusive of people who are less fortunate. And there are issues that come to mind where people are being evicted from their home. And there are so many things in this life that are just basic needs. There's food, there's a roof over your head, and frankly, when I see people who are being mistreated, I will not tolerate that. I will do whatever I can to make sure that those things happen. So legislation needs to be changed, amended, and/or people who are abusing the tenants must be dealt with. And that is the responsibility of government, and that's something that I'm standing up for.